Samuel Ball is the mystery man of Oak Island, as Charles describes him, and there has been this connection, perhaps, that Samuel had found something, i.e. treasure.
Gary Drayton drops to his knees at the bottom of the legendary money pit, his boots sinking into soaked wooden planks. He slowly sweeps his metal detector through the thick black muck. Then, without warning, the detector explodes with a piercing signal, not iron, not scrap. The unmistakable sound every treasure hunter dreams of hearing just once in a lifetime. Rick and Marty Lagina freeze in silence. For the first time in more than 200 years of searching, something metallic is calling from the deepest point anyone has ever reached beneath Oak Island. Could this be the discovery that finally solves the world's greatest treasure mystery? But there's one problem. They can't dig it out. Not yet. Because the real story didn't begin at the bottom of the money pit. It began weeks earlier, in a forgotten swamp, with a single mysterious coin that may have changed everything. Before we uncover what that detector found, and why the team believes they're closer than ever to the legendary treasure, take a second to subscribe to the channel. We bring you the most fascinating discoveries, hidden mysteries, and unbelievable archaeological breakthroughs from around the world. If you love stories that blur the line between history and legend, you're in the right place. Now, let's go back to the moment when one small object surfaced from the mud and quietly set the entire hunt in motion. Deep inside the muddy waters of the Oak Island swamp, something tiny catches everyone's attention as it slowly emerges from the muck. For a brief second, the team simply stares, unsure of what they're seeing. Years of dirt and corrosion have nearly erased its details, leaving only a smooth, weathered surface. Then the sunlight hits it. Suddenly, a single marking becomes visible, a symbol that unmistakably resembles the number 8. It's a coin. The discovery instantly draws everyone together. They pass it from hand to hand, carefully wiping away layers of mud while trying to make sense of what they've found. It looks like an 8. Yeah, definitely an 8. What on earth is it? It has to mean something. I honestly have no idea. The more they examine it, the stranger it becomes. Unlike a modern coin, its edges aren't perfectly round. They have an uneven, clipped appearance, almost as if the piece had been cut into shape long before modern minting techniques existed. One thing is obvious: the coin is made of copper. Everything else remains a mystery. Where did it come from? How old is it? And most importantly, how did it end up buried beneath the Oak Island swamp? As the discussion continues, one member suddenly remembers seeing something remarkably similar. He struggles to recall the exact name before finally landing on a word that sounds like maravedis, an old Spanish coin used centuries ago. That single possibility changes the entire mood. Spanish. The word hangs in the air. If the identification is correct, the coin could date back to the 1500s or 1600s, centuries before most accepted timelines place significant activity on Oak Island. Finding a piece of Spanish copper hidden in the mud of a remote Nova Scotia island is enough to make every treasure hunter stop and think. And that's exactly why this tiny discovery matters so much. To understand its significance, you first have to understand Oak Island itself. For more than 2 centuries, this island has fueled one of history's greatest treasure legends. Generation after generation has searched its forests, swamps, and underground tunnels, all hoping to uncover whatever secret might still be hidden beneath the ground. Over the years, countless theories have emerged. Some believe the legendary Knights Templar, or later groups connected to them such as the Freemasons, concealed priceless religious relics here, inside elaborate underground vaults protected by ingenious flood traps. Others believe an entirely different story. According to that theory, Spanish sailors or explorers secretly buried part of their treasure on Oak Island instead of surrendering every last piece of gold and silver to the Spanish crown. It wasn't an impossible idea. The great treasure fleets regularly crossed the Atlantic loaded with unimaginable wealth from the New World. Not every shipment reached its destination intact, and not every sailor was eager to hand over every coin. If someone wanted to hide a private fortune, a quiet island far from the main shipping routes would have been an ideal location. Viewed through that lens, the copper coin becomes much more than an old artifact. It becomes a clue, a silent piece of evidence suggesting that someone from Spain's great age of exploration may have stood on this very ground centuries ago and left behind a trace of their presence. One member of the team even remarks that it may be the most promising-looking artifact ever recovered on Oak Island. But excitement alone isn't enough. A single coin doesn't solve a 200-year-old mystery. It's only the first loose thread, and someone on the island is determined not to mistake hope for proof. That person is Marty Lagina. While the rest of the team celebrates, Marty can't ignore the reality of what this search has become. He's the one responsible for approving every major expense, every excavation, every new machine, every permit, and every season of digging. More than anyone else, he has to ask the difficult question no treasure hunter wants to face. Is there truly something hidden beneath Oak Island? Or are they simply chasing a legend that's become impossible to walk away from? Marty doesn't pretend those doubts don't exist. Standing beside his brother Rick, watching everyone celebrate the swamp discovery, he admits that only a short time earlier, they had shared one of the hardest conversations of their entire journey. A conversation about ending the search, about accepting that, after decades of effort, millions of dollars, and countless excavations, it might finally be time to walk away. Not because they had run out of determination, but because they had begun to wonder whether they were still searching for treasure or simply holding on to each other's belief that the treasure had to be there. Only a few days earlier, Marty Lagina had delivered a difficult message to his brother. As far as he was concerned, hope was no longer enough. Before committing more money, more equipment, and more years of his life to Oak Island, he needed something undeniable, real evidence that justified continuing the search. Now, a centuries-old copper coin rested in his hand. Was this the breakthrough he had been waiting for? Could a weathered piece of metal, no larger than a fingertip, finally provide the proof he had demanded? Marty wasn't the type to jump to conclusions. Throughout the entire search, he had been the voice of reason, the one who questioned every assumption and challenged every exciting discovery before accepting it as fact. Even as everyone around him celebrated, he stayed grounded. The coin clearly meant something, that much he admitted, but first they had to determine exactly what it was. Until then, it remained an intriguing clue, not a confirmed answer. One artifact, no matter how fascinating, couldn't erase decades of uncertainty. Still, the atmosphere had changed. For the first time in a long while, Marty gave Rick something he rarely offered, a reason to be optimistic. It wasn't confirmation, it wasn't certainty, but it was enough to justify taking the next step. That delicate balance has always been the heart of the Oak Island search. Rick follows his instincts and believes the mystery is real. Marty insists that every belief must be backed by evidence. One brother leads with faith, the other demands proof. Without either of them, the entire expedition would lose its balance. And if you've ever found yourself caught between believing something extraordinary could be true and needing undeniable evidence before accepting it, then you're exactly where you belong. Make sure to subscribe, because the discoveries ahead only become more incredible from here. Because the mystery is about to grow far beyond a single coin. Soon afterward, Alex Lagina, historian Charles Barkhouse, and heavy equipment operator Billy Gerhardt assemble beside the Oak Island swamp to inspect an impressive new addition to the operation, a massive 35-ton, long-reach excavator. Even for a team accustomed to enormous machinery, this one stands apart. Its extended boom stretches over the swamp with astonishing reach, almost as though it had been designed specifically to reach into history itself. And that is precisely why it was brought in. Unlike any machine previously used at this location, the excavator can extend nearly 80 feet across the swamp, while digging into layers that had remained completely out of reach for years. For a long time, the deepest sections of the swamp stayed protected beneath thick mud and constantly returning water. Previous equipment simply couldn't reach them. Now, for the first time, those hidden layers can finally be lifted into daylight. The team isn't searching for just one thing. They're hoping to uncover evidence supporting the late Fred Nolan's long-standing theory that the Oak Island swamp isn't a natural feature at all, but something deliberately constructed centuries ago. At the same time, they're watching for any valuable artifacts buried beneath the mud. Earlier excavations had already produced wooden pieces and structural remains that appeared consistent with parts of an old ship. Now they wanted stronger evidence. Billy carefully guides the long-reach excavator into the deeper sediment, removing load after load of mud. Nearby, Marty operates a smaller 13-ton excavator, constantly removing water that pours back into the excavation. Meanwhile, Gary Drayton stations himself beside the growing spoil pile, methodically sweeping every bucket of excavated material with his metal detector. Gary avoids making dramatic claims. He isn't promising that a treasure chest waits beneath the swamp. His focus is much simpler. Fred Nolan spent years arguing that evidence of a ship existed here. Now the team's own discoveries appear to be pointing in the same direction. If a ship really lies beneath the swamp, Gary wants facts, not speculation. And so far, the proof still isn't complete. Then everything changes. The excavator lifts something from the mud that immediately captures everyone's attention. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than an oversized log tangled in the bucket. But as thick layers of mud slide away, its true shape becomes obvious. This isn't a fallen branch. It's a massive tree stump. Its broad base still carries what appears to be an intact root system, while the exposed wood displays the unmistakable grain and color of oak. The discovery becomes even more remarkable when they consider where it came from. The stump had been buried between 4 and 6 feet beneath the swamp floor. Gary confirms there is no metal attached to it. But metal isn't what matters. Its location is. Oak trees don't grow underwater. A tree this large could only have developed on dry, stable ground, where its roots had years to spread naturally. Yet now it sits buried beneath several feet of swamp sediment. That simple fact raises an extraordinary possibility. Long before the swamp existed, this area may have been solid forest. Only later did layer after layer of organic material accumulate above it until dry land disappeared beneath wetlands. Once again, the team finds itself confronting the question that fascinated Fred Nolan for decades. Did nature slowly transform this landscape over hundreds of years? Or did someone deliberately reshape the land, flooding what had once been dry ground to conceal something beneath it? For Rick Lagina, that possibility has never seemed far-fetched. For years, he has suspected the swamp may have been carefully engineered, rather than naturally formed. And with every new discovery, that theory appears just a little harder to dismiss. Rick has long believed the swamp may have been intentionally engineered to conceal something beneath it. Now, this ancient tree seems to support that possibility, but appearances alone aren't enough. A theory only becomes meaningful when the evidence can prove it. Fortunately, the stump may provide exactly that. Unlike speculation, wood can be scientifically analyzed. By cutting a section from the root and sending it for testing, experts can estimate when the tree was alive and, more importantly, determine when the dry forest it once stood in disappeared beneath the swamp. That single result could answer one of Oak Island's oldest questions. Did nature slowly transform this landscape over thousands of years? Or did people deliberately flood the area centuries ago to hide something beneath the surface? Everything depends on the date hidden inside that wood. The team carefully removes part of the root and prepares it for laboratory analysis. Until those results return, no one can say with certainty whether the swamp is a natural formation or the product of human engineering designed to keep a secret buried forever. While attention remains fixed on the mysterious tree, another critical chapter unfolds across the island at the place that started the entire legend, the Money Pit. Rick and Marty make their way to the garden shaft, where a deep drilling operation has reached one of its most important moments. The drill has now descended approximately 93 feet below the surface. At that depth, the crew believes they are approaching the location of a legendary underground tunnel, a passage long thought to extend westward toward the area many believe could contain Oak Island's hidden treasure. The mission is straightforward: locate the tunnel, find a way inside, and finally discover what lies beyond it. But there's one problem. Time has almost run out. This is the final day of drilling for the season. The crew is preparing to pack up, leaving only a few precious hours to make one last breakthrough before operations come to an end. Every decision suddenly matters. Then something unexpected happens. The drill begins to resist. Its progress slows dramatically, almost as though something beneath the surface is grabbing hold of the drill bit. The experienced crew immediately recognizes the feeling. Wood. Deep underground, wood often causes exactly this kind of resistance, and the location makes the discovery impossible to ignore. 93 feet down, exactly where the suspected tunnel is believed to exist. Rather than forcing the drill forward and risking damage to valuable evidence, the team decides to stop. They carefully remove the drill rods, collect every fragment brought to the surface, and preserve each sample for detailed examination. Oak Island has never surrendered its secrets easily. This may be the final opportunity of the season to understand what lies hidden below. When the recovered material is inspected, the results are both exciting and frustrating. The drilling expert is almost completely convinced, about 99.9% certain, that the drill encountered wood on the northern side of the borehole. Wood. Exactly where everyone hoped it would be. Yet there is one disappointing detail. The drill never entered the tunnel itself. Instead, it appears to have skimmed past its outer edge, brushing alongside it without breaking through. To many people, that might sound like failure. Rick and Marty see something entirely different. If you've located the edge of a tunnel, you've also discovered part of its path. The tunnel's direction can now be estimated. They may not have opened the doorway, but they've finally found the wall beside it. That realization transforms the mood instantly. Then Marty turns to Rick and says something that neither of them imagined they would ever say. "We have to go down there." Until this moment, neither brother had stood together at the very bottom of the garden shaft. They had studied maps, reviewed drilling reports, examined endless evidence, but they had never seen the deepest level with their own eyes. Now, that is about to change. The two brothers prepare their equipment and get ready to descend underground together. For both of them, the moment carries enormous emotional weight. More than a decade ago, they could never have imagined standing side by side inside the money pit itself. For Rick, the mystery began as a childhood fascination after reading about Oak Island when he was only 10 years old. For Marty, it became a lifelong commitment built on years of supporting his brother's dream before eventually joining the search himself. Now, after decades of determination, setbacks, and unanswered questions, the brothers are finally descending together into the place that has inspired generations of treasure hunters. For more than 2 centuries, countless explorers have stood above this ground, believing they might be the ones to solve the mystery. Now, Rick and Marty are about to stand where very few people ever have, closer than ever to the place where Oak Island may finally reveal its greatest secret. Step by step, the brothers make their way down the shaft, disappearing into the darkness below. What greets them at the bottom is unlike anything either of them had imagined. Heavy wooden platforms stretch beneath their boots while muddy water lies just below. Massive timber supports disappear into the shadows, giving the chamber the feeling of an ancient underground fortress. Standing there, surrounded by centuries-old wood, it's easy to understand why so many Oak Island legends are connected to the medieval world and the Knights Templar. Yet, despite the emotion of finally reaching this place, Rick and Marty refuse to let excitement distract them. The season is almost over. Every remaining minute has value. The shaft will still be here next year, but today's opportunity won't. Rick begins thinking about the simplest principle of all, gravity. Gary Drayton has repeated it countless times over the years. Objects always settle at the lowest point. If generations of searchers accidentally dropped tools, coins, or valuable artifacts into the money pit, gravity would have carried every one of them to the very place where Rick and Marty are now standing. Then, another possibility crosses Rick's mind. What if the legendary tunnel, or even the treasure itself, is only a few feet beneath the floor? A metal detector might be able to sense something buried below the visible surface. There is only one person they trust to find out. Gary Drayton. Gary carefully climbs down into the garden shaft, describing the descent as an experience unlike anything he's ever done before. When he reaches the bottom, he pauses. The ancient timbers, the dark water, the thick mud. The atmosphere is overwhelming. For the first time in Oak Island history, someone is about to sweep a metal detector across the floor of the legendary money pit. Before he begins, the team reminds him that the area is filled with potential interference. Modern nails, old wire, metal left behind by generations of previous excavations. Fortunately, Gary came prepared. He's carrying his trusted CTX 3030 detector, equipped with advanced target discrimination that allows him to separate ordinary iron debris from metals that could point towards something far more significant. That's exactly what this moment requires. The team is searching for 2 different possibilities at once.